They told my daughter she wasn't invited. After she'd spent 3 days cooking, hand-rolling pastries, and even making Grandma's favorite peach cobbler from scratch. My name is Michelle, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever watched your child be treated like they're invisible and had to decide, right then, what kind of mother you are? Because when I saw her standing there in the kitchen, apron covered in flour, eyes wide after reading the text my dad sent, I felt something snap. Change of plans. We're doing a restaurant instead. Adults only. That's it. No apology. No explanation. Just a decision made without her. After she'd planned the entire menu, made handmade place cards, even decorated the dining room for my mother's 68th birthday. My daughter, Emma, whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, baby." But they just did. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I simply texted back one word to my dad. Understood. Then I picked up the phone and started making other plans. Not out of spite, but because I wasn't going to let them teach my daughter that her effort was disposable. They wanted an adults-only party? Fine. But the celebration we were about to host would be unforgettable. That night, while my parents were clinking wine glasses at some overpriced seafood spot, Emma and I were lighting candles in our backyard. I called a few close friends, people who actually valued her. We laid out the feast she had made. Every dish. And what happened next? Well, let's just say word spreads fast when there's a party with real love in the air. By midnight, our yard was full. Neighbors, Emma's teachers, even the local bakery owner she once helped carry flour bags. They brought music. They brought wine. And 15 hours later, just as the sun rose and we were laughing over leftover cobbler, there was a knock on the front door. Then pounding. The door started shaking. Guess who finally showed up? Too late. Too guilty. Too exposed. It was my mother, still in her makeup from the night before, hair tousled, clutching her designer coat like it was armor. Behind her, my dad stood stiff, his mouth a tight line. He didn't look like a man arriving to celebrate. He looked like someone arriving to contain damage. I didn't open the door right away. I watched them through the peephole for a full 10 seconds. Let them feel it. Let them wait. Then I opened it. "Oh, good," I said, leaning casually against the frame. "You're finally here. Peach cobbler's all gone, though." My mother blinked. "You had the party here?" After we said. I stepped aside just enough for them to see behind me. Emma, still in pajamas, laughing with her art teacher at the kitchen table. Plates stacked high. Music still humming low from a Bluetooth speaker. There was warmth in that room. The kind they hadn't earned. "You said it was adults only," I said calmly. "So we honored that. We only invited grown-ups, people who don't treat a 16-year-old like staff." Dad cleared his throat. "It was just a misunderstanding. Your mother didn't mean to exclude her." My jaw clenched. I stayed silent. Let the silence speak. Because yes, they meant it. They just didn't expect consequences. My mother's voice softened, the fake version she uses when she's losing control. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Michelle. The restaurant wasn't going to allow minors. We didn't think it would matter." I cut in. Her mouth hung open. "You didn't think, Mom. Emma cooked for 3 days. You knew that. You told me to have her make your favorite sweet potatoes. She made them. She set the table. She even ironed napkins." "She's a child," my father snapped, suddenly defensive. "This wasn't her responsibility." "Exactly," I said, my voice dropping. "But she wanted to honor you. And you told her, without a shred of grace, that she wasn't welcome." They stood there, frozen in the threshold. I tilted my head. "Tell me, what hurts more? Being excluded? Or realizing the people you excluded threw a better party without you?" I didn't wait for an answer. I closed the door, gently, not in anger, but with finality. And on the other side of that door, Emma looked up at me, eyes searching. "You okay, Mom?" I smiled. "I'm perfect, baby. Let's reheat the mac and cheese. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's warm. And it doesn't knock first. It opens the door to people who never left." By Monday, the phone calls started. First my aunt, then my cousin, Then the real kicker, a voicemail from my dad that began with, "This family has always respected tradition." I listened with the same care I'd give a junk mail ad, because now I saw it clearly. Their definition of tradition meant compliance. Politeness over truth. Image over impact. Emma came home from school holding it together, barely. "Grandma didn't look at me in the hallway," she said quietly. "She turned away like I wasn't there." My heart twisted. This wasn't just about a birthday party anymore. It was about the pattern. The way they dismissed anyone who didn't fit their mold. Emma, with her bold spirit, her love of baking, her neurodivergent brilliance they never tried to understand, she was a reminder of everything they couldn't control. And they punished her with silence. I sat her down that night and pulled out a stack of photo albums. Page after page, birthdays, Easters, anniversaries. Do you know what I noticed? Emma was in the photos, but never celebrated in them. Always helping. Never the guest of honor. "I used to think I just didn't like parties," she said, tracing a picture with her finger. "But maybe I just didn't like their parties." My throat tightened. "They don't get to decide your worth," I whispered. "And they definitely don't get to silence your joy." She gave me a small nod, but I could see it. Something had cracked. A piece of her childhood belief that family always means safe. And I knew, as her mother, I had two options. Let that crack widen into cynicism, or fill it with something stronger than their coldness. So I made a decision. We were going to throw another party. This time for Emma. No occasion, no permission, no formal RSVP. Just a celebration of her existence. I booked the community center. I called her favorite local band. I even ordered a custom cake with one word written in gold. Scene. And when I posted the invitation online, I didn't tag anyone from my family. But word travels fast in a small town. The same people who uninvited her were now wondering why the whole town was suddenly RSVPing yes to the one party where their names weren't even mentioned. And that silence was starting to burn. The day of Emma's celebration, I watched her walk into the community center wearing a soft gold dress she'd picked herself. She looked radiant. Not in the polished way my family admired, no. She glowed from the inside out. Every guest who entered brought something: cookies, handmade cards, even flowers from their own gardens. People who'd seen her grow up. People who remembered when she donated her lemonade stand money to rebuild a neighbor's porch after a storm. She wasn't just invited that day. She was honored. And yet, there was one table in the far corner. Empty. Reserved for someone who probably wouldn't come. But I left it there anyway. A symbolic space. Around 5 p.m., as the music swelled and Emma laughed in a circle of friends, I noticed a familiar luxury car slow roll through the parking lot. It didn't park. Didn't even stop fully. Just hovered. And then pulled away. My father. He couldn't even bring himself to come inside. He just watched. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear of accountability. But what it looked like was cowardice. Inside, I didn't let it touch our energy. Emma was mid-speech. Yes, she made one herself, thanking people for believing in me, even when I forgot how to believe in myself. I bit my lip to keep from crying. And then, the crowd parted. My sister, Megan, stepped in. Late, unsure, holding something wrapped in paper. Emma stiffened. They hadn't spoken in almost a year. Megan had always been the golden niece. The one who got the family look and knew how to stay on script. But right then she looked different. Small. Nervous. "I didn't come for Mom and Dad," she said, voice trembling. "I came for her." She handed Emma the wrapped package. Inside, a framed photo of them as toddlers, baking cookies in Grandma's kitchen. "I was too scared to stand up for you," Megan said softly. "But I'm here now." The room stilled. Emma blinked fast, tears rising. "Thank you," she whispered. Megan reached for her hand, and the two of them, so different, yet bound by blood and 1,000 silences, stood together under the string lights. Later that night, Megan pulled me aside. "You know Dad's been talking to a lawyer, right?" I blinked. "About what?" She looked down. "He's rewriting his will. But don't worry, that ship might have already sunk." I didn't ask more, because I knew then, The ripples of our quiet stand were reaching shores they never imagined. It started with a knock. 15 hours after the party ended, just as I was cleaning up leftover decorations and rinsing dishes, the door started shaking like someone was desperate to break through. I opened it slowly. My mother stood there, tight-lipped, eyes rimmed red, still dressed like she'd come from church, except her hands were shaking and she wasn't holding her Bible. "We need to talk," she said. No hello, no apology, just entitlement wrapped in pearls and perfume. I didn't move. I simply folded my arms. "You made a spectacle," she hissed. "Posting photos, inviting people outsiders, and making your father look like a monster." I held her gaze. He did that himself when he texted a child that she wasn't welcome. She flinched, but only for a second. "I raised you better than this," she snapped. "No," I said, voice steady. "You raised me to smile through mistreatment. You raised me to value appearances over people. You didn't raise me to protect. You raised me to perform." Her breath caught. "You think that party makes you a better parent?" "No," I replied. "Emma does. The way she holds space for others, the way she forgives, the way she still hoped you'd show up, even after you erased her. That's what makes me proud." She didn't speak. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Then, she took a trembling breath. "Your father's rewriting this state. He's hurt. And he's angry." I almost laughed. "So, this isn't a visit. It's a warning." She didn't deny it. She just looked past me into the house. "You're making a mistake. He won't change his mind." I stepped forward and gently closed the door halfway. "I'm not asking him to. Let him keep the inheritance. Let him clutch it like it buys him absolution. I don't want it." Her eyes widened. "You're throwing away millions over a child's feelings?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm protecting my daughter's soul. You taught me the cost of neglect. I'm teaching her the value of worth." And then I shut the door. Behind it, my hands were trembling. But inside me, there was no doubt. Because when you break cycles, it doesn't come with applause. It comes with slammed doors, trembling voices, late-night visits filled with veiled threats. But I wasn't a scared daughter anymore. I was the mother who said enough. And, in that silence, I heard something new. The sound of legacy shifting. 2 days later, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a call. A thick envelope. Cream-colored. Hand-delivered. From a law office in our town. Same one my dad had used for decades. I knew before opening it. But what I didn't expect was how detailed it was. Page after page spelling out how my parents were removing me and my daughter from every trust, every property deed, every long-promised inheritance. No college fund. No share in the family vacation home. No access to the family foundation I helped build when I was barely out of college. Signed. Stamped. Witnessed. Their revenge was legal. Their cruelty official. But what struck me most was the tone. Cold. Surgical. As if I was a liability being erased from a spreadsheet. Emma walked in while I was still holding the letter. She took one look at my face and froze. "Mom," I turned slowly. I wanted to hide it, to shield her, but I also knew I couldn't lie. "They cut us out," I said. She didn't blink. She stepped forward, took the letter, skimmed it with calm I didn't know she had. And then, "Good," she said. I stared. "Emma?" "No, Mom," she said firmly. "They did it when they uninvited me. This is just them admitting it on paper." I never felt prouder of her than I did in that moment. But something still burned in me. Not anger. Not regret. Resolve. I spent the next 3 days making calls. Not to lawyers. To people. The ones who came to the party. Who posted photos. Who whispered things to me on their way out like, "Your father always did play favorites," or "It's about time someone in your family did right by that girl." Turns out, that little party stirred something. And not just in our town. A local journalist had written a heartfelt blog post about it. The girl the birthday forgot. By the end of the week, it went viral. Thousands of shares. National outlets picked it up. Talk shows called asking for interviews. I refused them all. But something bigger happened. A nonprofit in New York, One focused on teens left behind by family trauma, reached out. They wanted Emma to speak at their youth gala. They'd pay for travel, hotel, the whole thing. Because her story was resonating, not because it was unique, but because it was far too common. And in her pain, she gave others language. My parents had erased her from a table. But now? She was being handed a stage. The ballroom was golden. Hundreds of guests. Ceiling lit like a dusk sky. Cameras flashing softly in corners while servers passed around sparkling cider. And there, on a stage barely 2 feet high, stood Emma, 16 years old, wearing the same burgundy dress she baked in days ago, with sleeves rolled up and flour on her cheek. Except now her back was straight, her voice clear. She told a story without bitterness. Not once did she mention my parents' names. She simply said, "I cooked for people who said they loved me. Then they said I wasn't invited." And it hurt. But something surprising happened. Strangers showed up instead. People who saw me, ate with me, danced with me. And I realized maybe love isn't about blood. Maybe it's about who pulls up a chair when everyone else walks away. The room was silent. Not politely, but reverently. Then someone stood and clapped. Then another. Then the entire ballroom. People wept. A senator's wife whispered to me in the lobby, "She's what this country needs more of." Back at the hotel, Emma collapsed on the bed, laughing nervously. Was that okay? I held her face in my hands. You just turned pain into power, baby. That was more than okay. The next morning things changed. Not publicly, but intimately. I got a message from my brother, the one who had always stayed quiet, who watched from the sidelines while I got passed over, silenced, shamed for standing up. He wrote, "I saw the video. I had no idea. I'm sorry I didn't stand up sooner. Mom and Dad are furious. But honestly, they should be." He told me something else, too, that my parents were scrambling, that board members of the family foundation were concerned about their public image, that a few were even threatening to step down if things didn't change. Apparently, the optics of cutting out your granddaughter after a viral teen speech doesn't sit well with donors. Still, I wasn't interested in vengeance. I didn't need them to grovel. Didn't need the money back. Didn't need fake apologies. What I needed was already here. My daughter, braver than I ever was at 16. Loved not by obligation but by choice. And as we boarded the plane back home, she leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I think I want to start something for other girls like me." That's when I knew this story wasn't about a party. It was about a spark, one they tried to blow out, and only made brighter. It started with a name. Emma came into my room one night with a sketch pad clutched to her chest. She said, "I want to call it the Table Project." I blinked. "The what?" She grinned. "You know, for girls like me, girls who got left out, I want to build a space for them. Real tables. Virtual ones. Where they always have a seat." I sat there stunned. All I'd wanted was to protect her. But somehow, through all the pain, she had found purpose. We launched a small website. No fancy PR. No big budget. Just a few words. Everyone deserves a seat. And if they don't give you one, we'll build you a table. Within days, donations poured in. Not from celebrities. Not from corporations. From single moms. From teachers. From grandmothers who said, "This reminds me of what they did to my daughter." A local community center offered free space. A bakery donated food for our first event. The same one that delivered that chocolate cake to our tiny, defiant dinner party. By spring, Emma was hosting monthly gatherings for teens. By summer, the Table Project had a grant from a women-led foundation. By fall, a publisher approached her about a book. And my parents? They watched it all unfold. They saw their granddaughter on television. Saw people cheer for the girl who got forgotten and refused to stay quiet. My dad called once. Left a voicemail. Said, "We made a mistake. Can we talk?" But Emma? She listened to it. Deleted it, then said calmly, "It's not my job to help them sleep at night." I didn't disagree, because here's the truth. Forgiveness is powerful, but boundaries are holy. We didn't seek revenge. We sought healing. And sometimes, the sweetest justice isn't slamming a door. It's opening a new one they no longer have the key to. So now, every time a girl walks through the doors of the table project and sits down, I remember that text my father sent. It's adults only. And I smile. Because my daughter? She made her own guest list. And this time, no one gets left out.